So October is starting to come to a close, and today we're going to go ahead and talk about another Are They Real episode. Today we're going to be talking about if ghosts are real and a little bit of Ghostbusters. Who do you call Ghostbusters? No? So lots of different cultures have lots of different theories and myths about what ghosts are. Either they're deceased souls or demons or just different spirits from different time periods. Maybe they're nice, maybe they're just trapped in this life, or maybe they have malintentions. We don't really know, but today we're going to go ahead and talk about not what they are, but if they are possible. So if you're a current believer in ghosts and trying to line it up with scientific theory, you might be thinking it's made up of different energy forms, maybe something that can transfer through a wall, but also be able to interact with physical substance. And that right there is very, very hard, but we'll get to that in a minute. Supposedly, this theory would work because of Einstein's theory of relativity, which states that energy is equal to mass times the speed of light squared, E equals mc squared. So energy can be equal to mass, that energy and mass can move between each other. And yes, technically that is true. We did convert matter into energy and it had, well, explosive results. However, that's part of it, is if I was going to turn from energy about the size of a human and turn into something that had matter, I'd be very, very, very small. It's a very, very small conversion rate. And because one of the primary rules in science is that you have to be able to conserve energy, and it would take a lot of energy to constantly be shifting from energy to matter, you'd have to understand that you'd have to have some sort of chemical energy supplying that. And since as a ghost, as far as I know, doesn't eat, they wouldn't have enough energy. And even then, it's not like when we eat, we have enough energy to turn between those two forms. So probably not possible, but because there's so many different opinionated arguments on that, we're not even going to target that. We're going to start talking about more of the practical side of if you could be a ghost or not. Let's assume you weren't going to be turning from matter into energy. Let's assume you're going to stay matter the whole time. Well, see, matter does have the ability to transfer through other matter. In quantum science, imagine if you will, just for a second, everything that ever exists in the entire universe, including the entire Earth, was once shrunk down to a very, very small ball, and that was pre-Big Bang. It was a spiraling ball of energy, and all of a sudden exploded to fill up everything that is. So imagine every particle now once shrunk down to something about this big, which means even for something that feels extremely solid, there's lots of space in between each and every particle. So even though they're charged, they have sort of a force field, so a positively charged atom doesn't want to move past a negative charged atom because they repel each other like magnets. It is still technically possible. So out of every 1 zillion atoms, it's bound to happen a couple of times, which introduces the law of large numbers, stating that in a group of tons and tons of atoms, it has to happen eventually. And so technically, particles can travel through other particles. So perhaps ghosts somehow mastered this quantum ability and were able to transfer matter through other matter and, say, be able to interact with a solid object when they wanted to, but also be able to manipulate quantum happenings and be able to transfer through a wall when they want. It's not likely from a strictly statistics perspective, but let's say that was some sort of an ability that the ghost learned. Let's say sure that is possible. Probably not, but for the benefit of the doubt, and just because people like hearing that it is possible, that's how it would happen if it were going to happen. It's not gonna happen, but it's sure, why not? There you go, throwing you a bone. Let's say it were possible. Do we even have the current technology to be able to pick them up with our ghost sensing technology in the first place? So there are different tools that people use on ghost hunting shows in order to find ghosts, like Geiger counters, which test for radiation. And unless, let's say, you're a ghost who's made out of plutonium or uranium, you're not going to have a strong enough radioactive signal to even set off a Geiger counter. So it's just I don't even know why they use Geiger counters. If you're a ghost hunter and your Geiger counter is going off, you might want to condemn that house you're in and move away, because that's not a healthy place to be. The next is an EMF detector, which is an electromagnetic field detector, and technically anything with a charge will have an electromagnetic field, particularly if you have atoms like electrons or protons, which are negative and positively charged atoms moving around. They generate a large electromagnetic field. And let's say, because the theory is that ghosts would be made out of something like electrons, which have a strong charge but a very, very small mass, which would account for the ghost's ability to interact with things and have sort of this energy appearance, but not actually really be all that physical. So let's say you are a ghost, you're made up out of electrons. Technically, yes, you would set off an EMF detector by moving around. However, you know what else sets off EMF detectors? Anything that has alternating current, which is anything that plugs into a wall socket in a house. So basically, anything in your house, be it a TV, a microwave, a stove, they could all be giving off an EMF signal and messing with your detector, which would just totally, I mean, technically you could be picking up a ghost if that was the theory, but you could also be picking up the microwave. You don't know. So it's just such an impractical thing to actually use, because the readings you get would not be reliable. Same thing with an ion detector. An ion detector is used to pick up negative or positive signals if you have a high negative or positively charged area, like during a lightning storm or by alternating current. So yes, technically, if there was a ghost nearby, you might have a higher negative reading by the current theories that are out there, that there might be more electrons in one place. However, you usually don't have high density gatherings of electrons. They usually start latching onto all the particles around them, and because things like the air like to move around all the time, they spread out through a room and then outside of the house and then even further out into the world. That's why if you rub a balloon on your head and make it negatively charged, you stick it up against a wall, eventually all those electrons spread out enough that the balloon falls off the wall. That's just the way that things work. So a ghost over time would probably just be ripped to shreds, and even if it weren't, if it somehow kept all of its electrons for itself, the ion detector could just as easily be picking up any other negatively charged atoms in the area. It's just highly inefficient technology. I'm not saying ghosts would be unreal because of that, but the technology certainly wouldn't work, and ghosts are improbable at best. Finally, we are going to get to the movie of today. We're going to be talking about Ghostbusters and their ghost collecting backpacks. So in the movie Ghostbusters, a bunch of scientists set out to capture ghosts, and they have these proton packs which create an electromagnetic field from protons, the positively charged atoms. And as we know, positive and negative things in science like to combine and connect together. So if you had a proton pack, it would have all these positively charged atoms trying to get all these negatively charged atoms from the ghost, and they'd combine and all fit inside the backpack. And yes, technically that theory would work. You would be able to technically trap something like I was talking about with the ion. Positive and negative things want to neutralize, so they'd hook into each other, basically create some sort of covalent bond, which is a very strong chemistry bond, and they'd be stuck in the backpack, which, yeah, that's a probable theory. Not saying ghosts are real, but at least the proton pack would semi-make sense if ghosts were made out of electrons. Probably not going to happen, but hey, why not? So, ghosts, more likely than zombies, more likely than werewolves, and about the same likelihood of a vampire. Probably not, but I'm not going to shut it down completely. There are some other theories, like with electromagnetic fields and with quantum energy, that souls could survive in the afterlife. I'm not going to go into that, but there are some semi-interesting theories, but they've never really been checked out by peer-reviewed sources, so I'm not going to talk about them on the show. Anyways, if that ever happens, I'd love to talk about them because they're very, very interesting shows. Thanks so much for watching today's episode. If you like what you saw, go ahead and like and share this with a friend or a family member. If you want to see more, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and make sure to tune in next week when we're going to be talking about viscosity because of the amazing Hitchcock film Psycho, which is a Halloween classic where they pour chocolate syrup down the drain in order to mimic blood. Well, chocolate syrup, I don't know if that's the best blood replica that they could come up with, but Hitchcock claimed it was about the same density or viscosity as blood. So next week we're going to be talking about viscosity and if that was really the best prop to use. So anyway, we're going to be wrapping up October with my favorite Halloween flick, Psycho, and one of my favorite directors of all time. Make sure to tune in next week for that. And if you have any other ideas or suggestions for topics or builds or movies or games you'd like us to review, go ahead and let us know in the comment section below. I would absolutely love to do them, and we will see you next week for our final October episode. See you guys. So from all different sorts of cultures, there are lots of different myths about... Yeah, you asked me that before. Yeah. What? David. I do weekly science videos.